Hey guys, this is Jason Marsden. I voice Max Goof. Hey, if Max were here, he'd say, "Hey, check it out. My buddy PJ just told me about this great new podcast that I should listen to. It's called the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. Oh man, let's get dangerous. Sounds like a blast. I'll listen to it right after this Powerline song ends."
All right, Powerline in the house. We just had Max Goof introduce us. All right, guys, welcome to the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. I'm your host, Will Santana, and...
Ho ho! I'm Mike Russo, and you can't break an omelet without pounding the living daylights out of a few eggs.
What if we slice and dice those eggs, Mike?
Ooh, should we slice them and then dice them, or should we dice them and then slice them?
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
It's good. Yeah, it's, you guys don't know, but it's been a couple of weeks since we've recorded one of these, so it's good to be back. Mm-hmm. And things are going good. I mean, as we're recording this, things are kind of chaotic because of the coronavirus right now. I'm sure by the time this drops, it won't be any better, unfortunately. So things are a little nuts, but we're all hanging in there. How about you, Will?
Yeah, it's my first time, we recording, and I haven't had a chance to get to share some of my Pensacon experience, from last weekend. And I just got bad news, Mike. I'm a big sports guy, and the NBA season is, as of this moment, March 11th, my daughter's birthday, has been suspended.
That's ouch.
Yes, and basketball is my number one sport, so I'm really hurting. And then I just found out March Madness is still going to continue, but with no fans. So I don't know how I'm going to get hyped up into the games without the fans. That's going to be a little weird.
Oh, there's just going to be empty seats.
Yeah.
That's going to be really sad.
Yeah, man.
But you said they're still going to have cheerleaders.
Yeah, they're still going to have the cheerleaders, the coaches, and the players, but no band, no fans.
I don't want to laugh, but it's just, I guess the world has to keep going somehow, huh?
Yeah, but we got some Ducktales news. That's some good thing. That's some good information.
Yeah, in a few days from when this drops, at least, we're finally getting season 3, Will.
Mm-hmm.
When we're getting season 3.
What is it, April 4th it releases?
Yes, 2 episodes are releasing April 4th.
Oh, 2 episodes might be like an hour-long special then.
Yeah, well, I think it's just 2 separate episodes.
Yeah.
One is called Challenge of the Senior Junior Woodchucks. Mm-hmm. The other one is called Quack Pack. So that should be funny. But the big news is the episode airing April 11th.
Yeah, that's the one with FOWL, right?
That's our Steelbeak episode.
Yeah.
The episode is titled "00 Duck In, You Only Crash Twice."
Please, Rob Paulsen. Please, Rob Paulsen.
I really hope so. And the episode description is: a spy video game turns dangerously real as Launchpad and Dewey must stop FOWL Agent Steelbeak's plan to destroy Duckburg. And again, this is our 3rd Launchpad episode that revolves around something Darkwing Duck, and again, it's with Dewey.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. Dewey's in all the Darkwing episodes, which is great because he's my favorite of the 3 of them. I wish they would just do an episode without one of the kids, but I hear Disney Channel won't let them do that.
Yeah, probably not. It seemed like every episode, I don't know, honestly, it seemed like the kids are more of the main actor than Scrooge is,
Yes. There has not been an episode without one of the kids in it, but there's been a whole bunch without Scrooge. Mm-hmm. But it's exciting still. We're getting Steelbeak a lot faster than I thought we would.
Yeah.
And 00 Duck. That's cool, too.
I still see a big divide though. I see people who love the show, and then I still see people who hate the show.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
kind of
just
like I like it, I enjoy it, but I'm not a hardcore fan like you are, you know?
yeah. I mean, I have there are things about the show that, I
Mhm.
don't love, but I do love it. I do enjoy the show. It's just, but there are lots of people who just can't stand it, and that's never going to change.
Yeah, the ones who having problem with the animation, I think like once you get like 4 or 5 episodes deep, then you don't even think about the animation anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. And there are people who, would rather the Darkwing stuff be closer to the original show or star certain voice actors, and the
But
people like that.
you gotta admit though, Jim Cummings not being Darkwing is kind of a heartbreaker. So I kind of feel their pain, but I have moved on from it and I've accepted it. But I understand their pain. I felt it too, you know.
If it wasn't for this show, though, this entire Disney Afternoon universe would not be coming back.
Hmm.
We have to give the show at least that much credit. But yeah, so guys who are listening now, stay tuned. DuckTales is coming back on Disney XD again. It moved back to Disney XD, so you'll be finding it there unless you have the Disney Now app, which is how we're gonna watch it. But
Okay.
anyway, move on from DuckTales.
Yeah, let's move on. Let me talk a little briefly about Pensacon. I don't want to stay there too long because we only had Jim and Katie there. Um, Unfortunately, Katie was brought for a Dungeons and Dragon reunion, so she was not paired with the Disney voice actors for some reason. They had her in a whole separate hallway in the other side of I think it's called the Pensacon Bay. No, Pensacola Bay, not
That,
Pensacon Bay.
that's
Yeah.
a shame.
Yeah, they had her way in the other side, and like it was the west. There was the east wing and the west wing. She was on the west wing, and like the west wing was just not as popping as like the east wing. The east wing, you had Tron over there. Well, not Tron, but the guy who played
Yeah.
Tron. The guy who played Sark in Tron. You had Bill Farmer, Jason Marsden, Jim Cummings, all together, including I don't know her name, but she was in Hocus Pocus, and
Which one?
the bigger one. She was also in Sister Act.
Kathy to Jimmy?
Yes, her. And she was kind of like between Jim and Jason Marsden because I forgot Jason Marsden also did a voice in Hocus Pocus. He was the cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally forgot that. And so like they had all these Disney people in one room. They had the Home Improvement guys in that same room. Man, that room was just popping. All the Power Rangers was in there. That East Wing was just crowded. Yeah,
That's a
I don't.
shame that Katie
Mhm.
was all the way somewhere else completely.
Yeah, it kind of sucked because like the crowd, some people just weren't like, I'm not going all the way to that other side of the building. Yeah,
Uh,
so she kind of missed out on some, but some dedicated fans, they were like, I don't care, I'm gonna go see Katie because there were some Gummy Bear fans that
yeah, of
some
course.
Darkwing, Muppet Babies, uh My Little Pony. She had a few fans for that. There was one show she had a lot of fans. I had never heard of it. It was called like Totally Spy or
I've
something.
I've heard of that. I've never seen it, but I know
Mhm.
of it.
Yeah, she had a lot of females come over for that show, man. Yeah, so it was kind of cool. It was a fun experience. I had some issues with recording with my media pass. I'm not gonna get too deep into that. It's a big old rant. And
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You told me that.
yeah, so I don't want to go there with it. But it was cool. My buddy Joe, man, he went all out and got like 15 pops signed by Jim, man.
Don't get me started, Will.
Yeah, man, it was ridiculous.
I saw the picture of all the pops he had signed. That's
Yeah.
that's insane. But I guess if that's your thing, that's your thing.
Yeah, man. I wish I could share the story of, the what was agreed on, the deal, how the deal even happened, and the words that were spread, the sign those pops. I wish I could, but I can't share it
Mm,
publicly, man. But
no.
I'll tell you off the air, man. It's hilarious.
Hmm.
It's a hilarious story. But let's move on from Pensacon. Jim and Katie was there, so make sure you guys go see Jim and Terry at Lexington, which is coming up in a few weeks. Or
Provided they don't cancel it.
yeah. Okay, but hey Mike, where can they listen to our podcast at, man?
Everywhere, Will. Let's leave it at that. No, I'm kidding. Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple devices, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, YouTube. You can watch us on there. And of course, if you stick with us on YouTube, we also post videos and stuff every week, every other week. So definitely check out YouTube and subscribe to that. We're on Pandora, iHeartRadio, and of course, you can also ask your Alexa to play us too.
Okay. All right.
Any shout-outs, Will?
Yeah, I got 4 shout-outs today. I want to give a shout-out to Adrian Mateo. You know, he was at that
Megavolt.
Yeah, he was Megavolt C2E2, man. He represented it, so I got to give him mad love. And then I got to give a shout-out to 3 other cosplayers that I met at GalaxyCon. They're going to be in Lexington, and they invited Adrian, and he's working on it, you know, to join them because they're going to dress up as Darkwing, LP, and Gosling. So that's going to be pretty cool. And their name is Cody Dillahunt, Derek Dillahunt, and Cosplay Cat.
Okay.
So those are my 4 shout outs. Oh, and shout out Felicia, man. Thanks for the shirt. I haven't got mine yet.
I was just about to do that, Will. If you didn't get to it, I was going to shout out to her too. Yeah, Felicia was very sweet. She made us St. Canard Files t-shirts, and she sent them out to us recently. I got mine as of this recording. Will hasn't gotten his yet, but it was really nice of you to do that, Felicia. Thank you very much. Now we can be walking billboards for our show.
Yeah, and a couple people messaged me on my personal page asking for a shirt. I can't sell the shirts, guys.
This was more like a present from Felicia to us.
Yeah, unfortunately we can't sell it. We don't have the license for it. I don't know. Maybe I could send you the photo and you print it on your own. But
that's at your discretion, not ours.
Yeah, I ain't got nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, to stress again, she didn't sell them to us. She made them for us. She made them for us as gifts, so we could promote the show. Yeah. Like, I'm wearing mine to Disney because last time I went to Disney, I wore a Darkwing shirt. You wouldn't believe how many people stopped me. So if I wear this thing to Disney, I guarantee people are going to point it out, and maybe we'll get some more listeners that way.
Okay, yeah, man. I might need to take it to the con, especially since I'll be working with Terry. You know, why not promote Darkwing in a podcast? You know, you were Terry McGovern, you know?
You should.
Yeah, man. But yeah, you know, if you guys are interested, reach out to Felicia, or maybe me and Mike can send you a photo, and you're on your own after that. One thing, Mike, before we get into this episode, I might post this on our Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
I can't speak for you. You're your own man. But I've been getting a lot of friend requests from our followers on the Facebook page. I don't mind the friend requests. I've accepted all of them. The only thing I'm warning you guys is I don't really post Darkwing stuff on my personal page. I normally just post sports, you know, movie talks here and there. I'll post Darkwing once in a while. So you're at your own discretion if you want to follow me. You know, my page is not that exciting and about Darkwing. So,
I mean, I post Darkwing stuff, but these days a lot of it's just shared from our Facebook group. So, but I also post other stuff as well. Family stuff, Godzilla, all sorts of nonsense. I don't seem to be getting as many friend requests as you are, Will. Maybe it's just because you're like actually in charge of the podcast and your name's on it, so you tend to get people gravitating towards you. I don't mind the friend requests. I will accept them if people want to. You know, it's I don't mind. I don't mind talking a little Darkwing. But speaking of talking Darkwing, let's discuss this episode and everyone's favorite Darkwing Duck character.
I don't know about that.
I wasn't serious. Well, so yeah, today we're reviewing Smarter Than a Speeding Bullet. The no-brainer where that title came from. What is that title derived from, Will?
I have no idea.
You don't know?
No,
really? Faster Than a Speeding Bullet. What did they say about Superman?
Oh,
yeah.
I'm an idiot.
You know, faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to jump tall buildings. That's the whole spiel with Superman.
You know, I'm gonna go off subject really fast with this. I've never been a comic guy. You know, as far as I said comic guy.
Comic
guy. I've never been like my Superman knowledge is only based on the Christopher Reeve movies and more recent stuff, man.
Yeah.
You know, a few animation movies I've seen, but I've never really read the comic books or anything like that, man. I was not into that stuff growing up.
I never actually read the comic books either, but Superman and Batman, they're such iconic characters that just through pop culture you learn about them anyway. But I totally get it if you never heard those sayings. Those are older. I think those date back a bit with Superman.
Yeah, but I got no excuse. I've heard that one, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't hear the Dark Knight term until like maybe late 90s. That was my first time hearing that, the Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, anyway, let's get back to this, man. I'm getting on track.
So here we go. Smarter Than a Speeding Bullet. It's our first of 2 episodes featuring Comet Guy. Ho ho! And it originally aired Thursday, October 17th, 1991. It's 42nd in production order, a little deeper, not the deepest we've gotten, but, deep. The story editor for this episode was Kevin Crosby Hops, and this episode was written by Doug Langdale. I know we've talked about both of them before. Mm-hmm. So to prepare for this, I wanted to know a bit about where Comet Guy came from. He's not a very popular character. Let's be really honest about that. But he's really interesting. A superhero who's basically, he looks like a human being, mm-hmm. and who has a really weird set of weaknesses, powers and weaknesses. It's a really odd thing. So I figured, let me ask Tad Stones where he came from. And Tad Stones immediately told me I should talk to Kevin Crosby Hops because he created Comet Guy. But the one thing Tad did tell me is one of the ideas behind Comet Guy was he could have, having a superpowered hero would be great because it would be an attack on Darkwing's ego. He said that was prime story territory. That doesn't really happen here, though. Mm-hmm. The next Comet Guy episode, you hear Darkwing's ego get hit when he ends up on a planet of all superheroes. But we'll get to that episode. So I went ahead and I messaged Kevin Hops, asked him a bit about Comet Guy. I didn't get too much back because he doesn't really remember much, he said. Mm-hmm. But he said there was a comic he enjoyed called Megaton Man. He said it was an adult comic and the drawings were pretty silly, but he always liked comedic spoofing of superheroes. So he said that's where Comet Guy came from. He also gives a lot of credit to Doug Langdale, who wrote it. He said he had met Doug. He had never written for TV before, but he was interested in writing animation. So he put Doug in touch with Tad. So it seems like, Kevin Hops, Doug Langdale, and Tad, they were all kind of in it together as far as this story goes. Mm-hmm. And he seems to give a lot of the credit to Langdale. He says Doug's a funny writer, and he was sure he's the one who wrote the episode, which he did. Mm-hmm. And the last thing Kevin told me, it's funny that years later, Doug Langdale also wrote 2 Quack Pack episodes in which the nephews become superheroes. So
I remember those.
Yeah, what are they called? The T-Squad. So Doug Langdale definitely seems to be a big superhero fan. And as we discussed, he was the best Megavolt writer too. So yeah, Comet Guy came from Kevin Crosby Hops. It was his creation. Mm-hmm. So those are our writers and our story editor. And animation-wise, I got a bit more information on Disney Japan. Remember way back, I was trying to figure out the names of the studios that animated the Japanese episodes, but I said it was impossible because all the credits show the exact same the names of the studios. Mm-hmm. They don't specify who did what. Mm-hmm. Okay, I finally figured it out. Figuring it out. Then bear with me here, Will. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail here. I hope you don't mind.
Okay.
I had mentioned a few episodes back, I binge watched Hercules. And the TV show, not the movie. Obviously, how much can you binge watch a movie? Mm-hmm. But I discovered at the end there were episodes of Hercules that were animated in Japan, and much like Darkwing Duck, you can tell there were 2 different tiers. There was a better Japanese episodes and ones that aren't as good. The difference between Hercules and Darkwing Duck is that the Hercules episodes specifically mention which studios did which episodes. So using that, I was able to figure out the episodes like Negaduck and Darkly Dawns the Duck Part 2, the ones we agree have some of the best animation, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those were done by a studio called Tama.
Okay.
And today's episode, which is good, but not as good, the studio doing that animation was called Jade.
Okay.
Okay.
Ooh, we're learning a lot here today.
Well, And the other studios I had mentioned, Antellier, BWCA, and Art Studio Jack, those were studios who specialized in backgrounds. So they did the background art. And depending on which episode, it was either Jade or Tama. So like the best Japanese episodes, Dead Duck, Negaverse, Negaduck, those went to Tama. Episodes like this, Slaves to Fashion, Duck Blind, those went to Jade. So now when we talk about those episodes, I can actually say the name of the studio who handled it. So that actually, well, took me almost 30 years to put that information together. I should be better than that, but I did. So this one was sent to Disney Japan and was animated at Tama. Not Tama, Jade.
Okay.
And the animation isn't great, but it has its moments.
I liked a few shots, man. I
agree with you.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it though, but I definitely liked a few shots, man.
Okay, so let's dive in. Let's talk about our plot. And first off the bat, who's the very first voice you hear when the episode starts?
Steelbeaks.
It's Steelbeak. So just like the last episode, we're seeing him at the very beginning again. It's nice. We don't have to wait for him. So tell me what's going on. What's FOWL up to this time?
They want him to steal rubber duckies from a warehouse.
Yeah. And we see something for the first time. We actually see a FOWL egg tank.
Yeah, we sure did.
It's literally a giant egg on tank treads.
But this time we saw a different FOWL member speaking to Steelbeak. It wasn't the Dan Castellaneta character. It was the bigger, the one that looks more like the ostrich or something.
Right. No, it wasn't the smaller duck with the high forehead. It was more of the one with the larger beak. I don't know who did the voice, but unlike the one in Cleanliness is Next to Badliness, where you could tell it was Dan, it was a bit more comical. In this episode, it's a lot more sinister.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't know who's doing that voice.
Yeah,
it's probably either Jim or Rob, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
And we also get lots of Eggmen in this episode.
Yeah.
Like, lots of Eggmen. They're like in every scene. And they do some talking too for once. But they're stealing rubber duckies. That's what they're doing.
And then DW and LP show up telling him he's out of luck.
Yeah, and Darkwing gets 4 separate, entrances to foil Steelbeak's plans, but there is not one occurrence of the I Am the Terror entrance in this entire episode. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I definitely did notice that.
Yeah, because they don't do it here because Steelbeak says over and out, and then Darkwing shows up and he's like, "You're out, all right, out of luck."
Yeah.
There's no entrance. I kind of wished he would have gotten an actual entrance here because he just shows up in a puff of smoke and there he is with Launchpad and it's like they don't even build up to it.
Yeah, but then we get a tiny spaceship just crashes in there in the middle of their warehouse
and creates a huge crater in the middle of the ground.
Yeah, the little crown. What is it? A crown or something?
It's a little spaceship helmet. And it's tiny. This thing is as big as like a baseball. But it opens up and this big muscle-bound superhero stretches himself right out of this little helmet. And ladies and gentlemen, say hi to Comet Guy.
Yeah, and who's he voiced by, Mike?
William Calloway. Okay, I did some research on William Calloway. He was born 1940. He literally, as of, I think, today, turned 80 years old.
Oh, wow.
His birthday is today, March 11th, as we're recording this. So he just turned 80. He started acting in 1967, and his first voiceover was 69. He starred in the movie Love American Style, and like all of these voice actors, where do you think he did most of his work in the 80s?
Jeez, that Hanna-Barbera? That's my only guess.
But in this instance, he actually had a major character he did play for Hanna-Barbera. For the Smurfs, of all places, he was Clumsy Smurf.
Hey, Clumsy was my second favorite.
Because you like Michael Bell's Jokey, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we have, William Calloway was Clumsy Smurf. We all remember Clumsy. And you might know this character because you're more familiar with G.I. Joe than I am, right?
Yeah.
Who was Beachhead?
Beachhead was the one always he was kind of always with Neil Ross's character, the Navy guy.
Shipwreck?
Yeah, Shipwreck. He was always with him.
That was William Calloway too. Aside from Darkwing, he did a voice on Bonkers, and it turns out his last show was Quack Pack in 1996. He's retired.
Oh,
He
yeah.
wasn't even that old.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
I
if you
guess.
got enough money to retire, why not?
Yeah, and so he's Comet Guy, and Comet Guy has a bit of an obnoxious voice, but he is an obnoxious character. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Comet Guy, probably, I'll be totally 100% frank, Will, is probably the most hated character of all Darkwing Duck characters. I don't really know anybody who likes him.
I don't like him,
But
but I'll get in more to it.
he does
later.
work for this episode, though.
Yeah.
But he's annoying in a way even Stegmont isn't.
That's my comparison I'm saving for later on, but we'll get into that.
Okay, so here's Comet Guy. He shows up, and he's a human being.
Yeah.
He's a human. He's a superhero. He's a human, but he's also an alien. Do you remember what planet he said he came from?
I didn't catch it. I caught that planet he was supposed to go to at the end, but not what planet he was from.
Planet Mertz.
Mertz.
My best guess, and I hope I'm right, is Mertz was the name of the next door neighbors from I Love Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
The Mertzes.
Okay.
My guess is the writers who grew up with I Love Lucy, because I know I grew up with I Love Lucy, probably just thought it was a funny name, decided to use it.
Okay.
And so Comet Guy shows up, discovers that Darkwing's in the middle of trying to foil a crime, and attempts to help by shooting some fireballs, and burns down the entire building.
Yep. And then LP turns on the fire alarm a little late.
So helpful, Launchpad. So helpful. But then we learn something about Comet Guy.
Yeah, he has a kryptonite.
He has a kryptonite. His weakness, every time he hears a bell, he can't stop dancing.
That was so cheesy.
Very, very odd. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how they come up with that. Like, that's really the strangest thing. I don't know if I'd say cheesy, but definitely extremely strange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he turns it. He gets a white suit, a hat, and a cane, and starts dancing everywhere.
Yeah, he's tearing up buildings and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
he bumps into a police officer.
Yeah, she blows her whistle, and all of a sudden he turns back to normal, and it turns out, so it's bells make him dance, and whistles make him turn back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, utterly insane.
Yeah.
And Steelbeak freaks out because his jacket got dirty, so
Yeah,
he wants to leave. He has to get back to the dry cleaner before he has to get cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
And Darkwing does manage to handcuff him again, like in the last episode.
Yeah.
But
then,
Comet Guy is such a big distraction that
Yeah,
Steelbeak's able to get away.
Yeah, he just bites the handcuff off.
Yeah, they rarely ever use his steel beak for
Mhm.
things like that, but it's cool when he does it. Yeah, he just chomps off the handcuffs and they get away.
Yeah, DW calls out Comet Guy for being a terrible hero.
Do you see Darkwing just walks right up his chest?
Yeah.
And he tells him he's like, what kind of superhero are you? And Comet Guy goes, a lousy one.
Hey, you actually did the voice pretty good.
You know what? I'll tell a quick story. I was in 7th grade when Darkwing Duck was airing, and Darkwing Duck wasn't like this big thing in school. Like, I drew it, I loved it, but a lot of people I knew didn't really know about it. It wasn't like quoted as much as The Simpsons was, you know? But there was one character some people I knew latched onto and would repeat him. They would Comet Guy. I would hear kids in my class walk around going, oopsie, and ho ho. And I'm like, seriously, of all the characters from Darkwing Duck you're imitating, it's Comet Guy.
You sound just like him, though, dude.
Thanks, Will.
You really do, man.
It's not a hard voice.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, getting back on subject here.
Yeah.
Comet Guy's been sent to Earth because he's a lousy superhero, and he needs a champion of Earth to train him.
Yeah, he's the worst champion on his planet.
Yeah, so somebody has to train him, and what that does is it strokes Darkwing's ego.
Yeah, but DW's motivated because he don't want him to destroy St. Canard. So he's like, yeah, I'll teach you.
Yeah, he goes, if I don't do something with you soon, I won't have a city left to protect.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get a cool scene where they're at a shush training course.
Yeah, it was really cool, man.
At first you don't see anything. It's just a desert. And Comet Guy's like, there's nothing to train with here. And Darkwing's like, oh, contraire. He's like, all I have to do is he grabs a cactus it's a real cactus. He thinks it's a fake one. He thinks it's a lever he has to pull, and ends up stabbing himself with the needles. And that little bit of animation of him screaming and reacting to the cactus is actually really well done. You can tell it was done in Japan.
Oh yeah.
But when he pulls the right lever, all these a training course shows up, a big wooden structure, all sorts of things come out.
Yeah. Have you noticed that LP must have never seen it before because he was amazed at it?
Yeah, Launchpad's surprised to see all that stuff, which he shouldn't be because Launchpad's seen stuff like that. Remember Dirty Money?
Mm-hmm.
And so Darkwing's first task to get the Comet Guy to do is to swing across the water.
Mm-hmm.
And, on a rope, swing across some water on a rope. And Comet Guy asks, why can't you just walk across it? And I love the animation of Darkwing stomping in the water going, because you'd get wet, see? And it's just great the way he's stomping in the water. But it turns out Comet Guy also has ice vision. Years before Elsa, he freezes the water, he freezes Darkwing solid.
That's funny. You brought up Elsa.
And this is important because what's happening in the sequences do come back later in the climax. So the next thing Darkwing wants Comet Guy to do is to climb a simple rope. He's like, no fires, no ice, no capiche. He goes, capiche? And Comet Guy goes, absolutely, no capiching. And Comet Guy pulls on the rope, but what happens to the structure, Will?
He knocks it down.
It collapses onto Darkwing. And Comet Guy starts to cry. I love how he's like wringing out his hands. He's so distraught.
Yeah.
And so Comet Guy stinks. So you next see them in the Thunderquack. And Comet Guy mentions, this is what you do on patrol. Fly around looking for trouble, huh? On my planet, that's what the crooks do. But as we later find out, Will, in Planet of the Capes, there are actually no crooks on his planet. But we'll get to that episode in time.
Yeah.
So they spot the egg tank. They pull up behind it. You want to continue? You said you like the next scene coming up.
Yeah, man. This is a scene where I love the animation for about maybe a good 2-3 minute sequence.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. This is a great scene.
Yeah. So we get Steelbeak. He's at Bob's office supply, right?
Bob's office supply hutch. What are they stealing?
They're stealing erasers and rubber bands.
So far, the connection for their plot is everything is rubber. I wonder what they're doing.
Well, then we get he gets on the phone with FOWL first, right?
I think so.
Yeah, he got on the phone with FOWL, and he tells them that he's got everything. But then DW and Comet Guy shows up. But when they pop up, that shot of them with the light behind the door with the shadows, it was amazing, man. That was a great shot.
The drawings and the colors in this sequence is really well done too. Steelbeak has some really cocky faces in this sequence. He looks very smug, and that look on Darkwing when Comet Guy whispers, "How am I doing?" and Darkwing looks so peeved. And then what happens next? This sequence is actually really well animated. What happens?
The Eggmen, they knock over all these pencils, man, and DW and Comet Guy, they're just sliding all over the place.
Well, let me clarify. Darkwing slips. Comet Guy only slips because Darkwing did it, and he's copying him.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's because Darkwing did tell him to do what I do.
Yeah, Darkwing crashes into Steelbeak, and Steelbeak ends up in a closet
with a mops and mop buckets and
which
plungers.
That's gonna pay off in a minute. But then what happens to poor Darkwing?
He ends up in a pencil sharpener. Head
first. I'm like, you hear him screaming in the pencil sharpener. You see his cape get sucked into it.
Yeah. But when he pops out, he gets that cone head from the pencil sharpener.
He has a pencil head.
Yeah. But the shot, this is the shot. Another shot I wanted to talk about was when he took that pencil head. When he shakes it off, his angry face, man. Oh my God, I love the drawing on that shot.
Yeah,
man.
He does that thing that Jim always does, and I haven't mentioned it yet. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Anytime Darkwing like shakes his head and Jim's like like that, he does that, and then he snaps to this really angry face. And that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I loved it, man.
Yeah, Darkwing's lost his patience. And by the way, let's point out, Steelbeak's in the closet, and the Eggmen leave. They don't know what to do, so they run out of the building.
Yeah.
And Darkwing loses his patience at all, completely. He snaps at Comet Guy. And two things I want to point out. This studio, Jade, in other episodes they do this too. Their colorists had a habit of coloring the rim around the sides of his cape on his shoulders pink.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. I think it's a mistake, but I love how it looks. Like next time you watch this, look how the cape folds around his shoulder. They color the sides of it pink. Okay. Secondly, as Darkwing is screaming, now you flunked out, you know exactly who he sounds like. Jim's voice slips into Professor Nimnall from Rescue Rangers. I played that scene to my wife, and she's like, yeah, that's Professor Nimnall. Because Darkwing rarely yells like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of many other episodes where he screams at somebody else.
Yeah.
I think Comet Guy makes Darkwing the maddest he's ever been. So Darkwing walks out on Comet Guy, and Comet Guy cries again. Yeah, I'm the worst. I'm Comet Guy. And then what does Steelbeak do? This is great.
He comes up with an idea to manipulate Comet Guy.
Yeah, I love it because it gives Rob Paulsen so much more to do.
Yeah, so he puts the mop bucket on his head. He has a cape, and then he comes out with that plunger. His name was Steelwing Cluck.
Yep, Steelwing Cluck.
Yeah, so he's gonna try to manipulate Comet Guy into that. He'll train him.
Doesn't take much. Comet Guy is just that stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Steelwing Cluck takes Comet Guy takes him to a factory where there's a big vat of molten rubber.
Mm-hmm.
And Steelbeak's trying to convince him that they're diffusing bombs or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is a great entrance on Darkwing's part. It's very clever. The Thunderquack flies right into the building, right through the wall. The cockpit opens up, and Darkwing and the launch pad just bounce out of the Thunderquack. It's really funny. And, of course, Darkwing knows immediately that's obviously Steelbeak. It's not somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, hold the phone. That's Steelbeak. But Steelbeak is so manipulative and Comet Guy is so dumb that Steelbeak has this all under control because he has all of the other Eggmen dress up as superheroes too.
Yeah, so now Darkwing looks like an imposter.
Yeah, he has the Eggmen dress up as Darkwing as well. He says they're the android duplicates.
Yeah, even LP's convinced.
Yeah, LP doesn't do much in this episode. His best scene's toward the end. We'll get to that one. Mm-hmm. But Launchpad's totally convinced that, they're robots too. And Comet Guy's like, you have a phony beak, and he actually takes Darkwing and crushes him into a basketball.
Yeah, shoots him.
Did you notice what theme plays while he's doing that?
No.
The Muddlefoot's theme.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. As he's crushing Darkwing and playing basketball with him.
Mm.
Yep. He tosses Darkwing into a trash can, grabs Steelbeak, picks up the huge vat of rubber, and they're gone. Flies away. Gone. And Launchpad's like, hey, what about the rest of these robots? But all the Eggmen just take off their disguises and run away.
Yeah.
But Launchpad notices there are drops of latex all over the floor. Mm-hmm. They should follow that. And of course, Darkwing steals his idea. So they head off. Now we're in another factory where Steelbeak's pouring the molten rubber into a giant tea kettle in order to boil it.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
That's correct.
Yep. So they're doing that, and Darkwing makes another entrance.
Yeah, he makes another entrance, but on this one there was an animation error.
Well, what is that?
It's really quick though. It's when he jumps in and he starts running towards Steelbeak. His mask is missing. He doesn't have his mask on.
I think it's the most common mistake in Darkwing. Either they forget to color the mask, or when he's Drake, they draw the mask on him but don't color it in.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the most common mistake on this show. Next to accidentally coloring Darkwing like Negaduck or vice versa. That's happened too.
Yeah.
So Darkwing they burst through a window. He immediately pulls off Steelbeak's helmet.
Yeah, and he reveals his identity.
And Comet Guy's angry. He's like, "You not so nice person." But Steelbeak is ready.
Yeah, he got a plan up his sleeve.
He has a plan. He pulls out a bell, and Now we get a bunch of transformations back and forth with Comet Guy.
Yeah, it starts off with ballet.
He's a ballerina, yeah. And then he's a Spanish dancer with a rose in his mouth. Then he's a can girl. And then he's got the Carmen Miranda, the fruit hat. And then finally he's a tap dancer with like suspenders and a little hat and I think a cane too. He's dancing around. And this is great because
for those who haven't seen this episode, what's happening with all these changes is Steelbeak rings the bell and then Darkwing whistles, and then Steelbeak rings the bell, Darkwing whistles. It goes back and forth for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't mention that. But then Steelbeak pulls out his secret weapon, the lemon launcher. Now, you know there's an old cliche, if you suck on a lemon, you lose your pucker.
Yep.
And he basically shoots lemons at Darkwing and Launchpad's faces so their beaks get all warped and they can't pucker and they can't whistle.
Yep.
So throughout the next scene, as Steelbeak finally reveals his plan, once in a while you'll see Comet Guy either dance past in the background or the foreground. Every time he does it, the dance music plays just long enough for him to leave the shot and then stops. I think that's actually pretty clever. But he captures Darkwing and Launchpad in a net and then phones High Command. Yeah. Okay, so what is FOWL's master plan?
They have the foul ball,
yeah,
which is a baseball reference.
Yeah, the foul ball. It's a pun because they poured the molten rubber into a mold, and now they open the mold, and it's basically a gigantic, like one of those high bouncing balls. Like I think it's 60 tons of solid rubber, and with a remote control. So the idea is they're just going to destroy St. Canard with this giant ball. So Steelbeak and a couple of Eggmen get in a helicopter, which is also shaped like an egg, fly away with the ball, and Steelbeak leaves a couple of Eggmen to take care of Launchpad and Darkwing. Yep. And that's when the Eggmen start talking.
It's got to be Jim though, don't it? Ain't it?
It does sound like Jim. Yeah. One of them goes, "Slice and dice, man, slice and dice."
Yeah, because one of them sounded like Herb to me.
Yeah, well, when Darkwing they say, should we slice him and then dice him, or should we dice him and then slice him? Darkwing's like, whatever you do, don't smother us in molten rubber. And then one of the Eggmen goes, turn up the heat, and he hits a very hard T on the word heat, and that's something Jim does. He hits very hard consonants, P's and K's and T's. So I'm positive this Eggman is Jim. Okay. Just the way he says heat. That's a Jim thing. And you're right. It does sound a bit like, some of Jim's characters. So he turns on the heat and the whistle blows and Comet Guy is back to normal. And I love how Comet Guy defeats the Eggmen. He just runs up to them and pounds them right in the ground like tent pins. Yep. And that's when he says the line I said at the beginning of the episode, you can't make an omelet without pounding the living daylights out of some eggs. I love it. So he frees Darkwing and Launchpad, and they go after Steelbeak.
Yep, and this is where Comet Guy finally shines, Mike.
About time. I will say one thing. I like the setting of this sequence. Wherever it's taking place, it's right at the base of the bridge, on one side of the bridge, because you constantly see one side of the bridge in the background. Yeah. I think it's a really cool setting. So what's going on in this scene? What does Comet Guy do to redeem himself?
Well, Darkwing tells him to use his eye vision like he did when he froze the water at the training course.
Yes, so what does he do with his eye vision?
He freezes the foul ball.
Crashes to the ground and explodes. So that's done. The foul ball didn't have much time to do anything. Yep. And then what does Comet Guy do?
Now he uses the rope to bring down the chopper with Steelbeak in it.
But Steelbeak is not down and out because he notices it's almost midnight.
Yep, the clock bell's about to go off.
Yeah, and so Comet Guy gets one last transformation, and what does he turn into?
Yeah, hip-hop dancer.
Something like that, right? He's doing hip-hop. He's got the parachute pants, the gold chains. Yeah. And this is probably the most dated thing in any Darkwing Duck episode. Like, it's really, really dated. This is the one thing in the episode I say doesn't play too well these days. It's like you watch it, you're like, the Vanilla Ice MC Hammer thing. It's like, it's as dated as the Ninja Rap, the Ninja Turtle sequel. You've seen that. You've seen that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
ninja rap.
So Darkwing and Launchpad decide to just go with it, and
Yeah,
they start doing hip hop too.
yeah, it was terrible, man. I can't.
It's bad. I do have one thing that does top it, and I will say it. I'll just tell you what it is. It's an episode of Aladdin, okay? Where there's a monster that dances and destroys a city because he has magic shoes. So in the end, Aladdin and his friends start a band, and Iago says it's hammer time.
Oh Lord.
I know. Iago actually says it's hammer time, and Aladdin's playing a piano with his feet. Yeah, so they actually did top this. There is one bit I like when Launchpad takes Steelbeak and twirls him and throws him into a building. As Launchpad is doing that, just watch Darkwing. He's doing the saddest hip hop dance you have ever seen. Like Darkwing's just getting down with himself. It's the funniest thing. So Launchpad of all people, he throws Steelbeak into a building, and Steelbeak is done. He's defeated. He's done. He actually whistles. Yeah,
he whistles to stop Comet Guy from dancing.
I do like the sound effect when Steelbeak finally passes out. You hear his beak clang against the bricks. And Steelbeak turns back to normal. And I think this is my favorite scene in the episode. Launchpad's still dancing.
Oh yeah, when he was still dancing.
And Terry's going. Terrible. Terry's going do 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 ba do ba a boo boo ba doo, and the shot of Darkwing looking so embarrassed, he like looks off to the side like, oh, I hope no one's watching this, and I did laugh at it. I do think it's very funny, and he's like, Launchpad, you can stop dancing now, and my daughter cracked up at it when we watched it the other day. So here comes our final scene. Take it away, Will.
Comet Guy graduates. He gets his diploma.
Yes. He's so proud to have his diploma, he immediately crushes it in his hands.
Yeah.
And the diploma is Doctor of Championology. But we have a twist as a big reveal.
Yeah, he's at the wrong planet.
Yeah. What? He goes, I got a diploma from the famous champion of the planet, Flug. I love the way Darkwing goes, Flug? This isn't Flug.
Yeah. So then Comet Guy says he's got to go to Flug.
Yep, he gets back into his little helmet, and he flies away right through the wall. And what does he crash into?
The moon?
Yeah, the moon. And he gives one last oopsie. That's like his catchphrase. That and ho ho, which is the last thing Darkwing and Launchpad say. They just wave goodbye, like ho ho, and that's it, man. That's Comet Guy.
All right, so
we haven't seen the last of him either.
All right. Yeah, so Mike, what do you think of this episode, man?
It has its moments.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's always nice to see Steelbeak, especially because he gets a lot of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of screen time. I think he's in almost every scene, except for the training course in the last scene. So there's a lot of him, a lot of Rob Paulsen, a lot of Eggmen, which is great if you love FOWL.
Mm-hmm.
The Disney Japan episode, the animation, I mean, looks fine. There's some great scenes. And I think the transformation dancing thing is bizarre enough to at least be somewhat funny.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably as much as I'll give this one.
Okay. How many gas gun canisters are you giving it?
It's watchable enough that I'll give it a 2.5.
Okay.
So it's right there, middle of the road. Its strengths definitely balance out from its weaknesses.
Okay. I'm gonna go a little lower than you. I'm giving it a 2.
Okay.
I like Steelbeak. I like FOWL. I like the Eggman. I like a few scenes, but the dancing and all the crying, man, he cries so much. It got really annoying.
I think that's the worst part about Comet Guy, just how much he cries.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much about him because I'm gonna save it for when are we scoring him?
Yes.
Okay. I love the animation for certain scenes. It really popped, especially the pencil sharpener scene or the Bob's office supply scene. I really liked it on that shot.
Yeah, that's the thing with when Disney Japan sends episodes to Jade. You get some great scenes like Megavolt up on the telephone wires, But then you get like stuff that isn't all that great. I'm
I
sorry.
love the no, you good.
Keep going.
I love the coloring during the desert scene when they were at the training course. Man, the colors are vibrant and popping, man. You know, the dark colors are inky. It looks really nice on that shot.
Mm-hmm.
Comet Guy though, he ruins it. So let's go ahead and get on to him. Let's score him now.
Yeah. So Comet Guy, you go first.
He's getting a 1, man.
I'm gonna give him a 1 too.
I don't like him. He reminds me too much of Stegmutt. Like he has like a child personality. He's always crying and whining. His voice on it.
But there was a sweetness and sincerity to Stegmutt and his friendship with Goslin that made him endearing to an extent.
And there's no Goss and Honker in this episode.
Yeah.
They don't appear at all. So that kind of hurts it for me with Comet Guy. So he's just getting a 1. He was really annoying to me.
I'm giving him a 1 too. He is a really annoying character. I think the concept is fine. A superhero from outer space who looks like a human being and who has like crazy weaknesses that make him dance. I think the idea is fine, but I just think it didn't all come together.
Yeah, 'cause to me, he was like a remix of Stegmutt, you know? Stegmutt just couldn't fly and didn't have X-ray vision, but it was like, okay, we already had Stegmutt, so it was like
a big, clumsy numbskull who drives Darkwing Duck crazy. It's the same kind of thing. But like I said, whereas Stegmutt is somewhat sincere and endearing, this guy is just a complete moron.
Yeah.
And no character, not even Herb, makes Darkwing as mad as Comet Guy does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like that. It's not a good look for Darkwing to get that mad.
Yeah. So, Mike, what episode we got next, man?
What episode we got next? Believe it or not, we are already back to Saturday morning.
Oh, already?
With another Steelbeak episode.
Which one?
But this one, this is a biggie, Will. I am really looking forward to this one because we're going to talk about Tiff of the Titans.
Oh, you've been waiting for this one.
Ooh, this is my Gizmo Duck episode. Not just my Gizmo Duck episode, my Fenton Crackshell episode.
You know what? I owe Andrew Wallace an apology. I met him at Pensacon. He was one of our he's one of our followers who messages us on our Gmail account.
Right.
And I got to meet him and his dad. I went with them to get Katie's and Jim's autograph. They were really cool. And he kept asking me, when are you doing Tiff of the Titans? I was like, I think it's coming up soon, but I'm not sure. I kept telling him, yeah, so I got to give him a heads up. It's coming up.
Yeah, it's Tiff of the Titans is one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. It's one of those episodes I practically memorized over the years. It's got Gizmo Duck in it. We do have Steelbeak again. It's one of the best ones, easily. Okay. And before we wrap up, there is one last thing about this episode I want to talk about. Remember way back when we were talking about Negaduck, and I spent some time talking about an animator named Tom Ray, who worked on some old Disney stuff and Warner Brothers cartoons? Mm-hmm. I noticed another name in the end credits for an animation director. An animation director is someone who basically micromanages all the animation stuff. He makes sure everything comes out looking right. Mm-hmm. I noticed a name, and I'm like, I know this name. The name was Charles A. Nichols. This guy, his career goes all the way back to Disney in 1940.
Dang.
He animated on Pinocchio. He animated the Coachman. You've seen Pinocchio, right? Mm-hmm. Remember the Pleasure Island scene with the Coachman? Mm-hmm. He animated that character. Mm. And he ended up directing Pluto cartoons.
Okay. Oh, so he go way back.
He animated Pluto cartoons, worked on Pinocchio, and then, of course, in the 70s, where do you think he was working?
Oh, let me take one guess. Hanna-Barbera?
Yes. But at the very end of his life, he came back to Disney to do a little bit more for New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and I think this episode of Darkwing was one of the last things he did before he passed away in 1992 at the age of 82.
Oh, wow.
So I know the Pluto cartoons don't have too many fans, but this guy worked for Walt Disney.
Okay.
That's big. And it's just cool to see veterans like that in the credits still working, still making a living, that late in their lives. And I really wanted to give him a shout out the same way I did for Tom Ray.
Okay.
But yeah, that's our episode. We'll see Comet Guy again soon. Not too soon, but we will. And do we have anything else to discuss tonight, Will?
Nah, we need to wrap this one up. So, guys, make sure y'all have fun, enjoy yourselves, and stay dangerous.
Also, stay healthy, wash your hands. Everybody, take care of yourselves.
All right. Good night, y'all. Stay dangerous.
Good night.